Good morning, sports fans all around the world. Today it's Monday, June 21st. I'm your host or co-host, Jeff Dawson, and our other co-host, Scott Webb from the Palm Tree State himself, will join us in a second. Hoping everyone had a great Father's Day. For myself, actually got to spend time on the opening day of the Cape League as we watched Katuitt beat Wareham yesterday, 8-5. It was a great game. Great to see the kids back as COVID took away their season last year. A good preview for a lot of these guys who will eventually make the next step up to the bigs, and we'll be hopefully seeing a few of these guys at Fenway Park sooner than later. So without further ado, the man with the plan, Mr. Scott E. Webb. Scotty, how are you, my brother?
Good morning, Jeff. I am doing well, recovering from my Father's Day. I went to brunch yesterday, and we sat outside, and I think we sat in the only spot in the whole place that didn't have an outdoor fan. So it was like uncomfortable eating our brunch, and my wife was sweating bullets, and I'm like, babe, just go to the restroom and wipe off your face or whatever. And she's like, man, then I take off all my makeup and stuff. And I'm like, okay. So I got her out of there, and then we walked around a little bit, and I'm like, babe, let's go, because you're like dying out here. It was 90 plus degrees and high humidity, and every time you turn around, it was not the greatest of I guess atmospheres, but at the same time, it was nice to have a day to celebrate Father's Day and go out and do something a little different than I normally do.
Yeah, as I stated at the start of the show, I was able to get out to a Cape League game. We live literally 10 minutes away from the home fields of Katuitt and the Hyannis Harbor Hawks. But I mean, I'm literally within a half hour to 45-minute radius of all the teams. And it was just great to see them out there. And the home side Katuitt stands, I mean, it was standing room only. And so what we do is we go to the away side, Wareham, where we had plenty of seats, but unfortunately, right into that sun that you're talking about. And it was hot out there. So let's just say trying to stay hydrated was the tough choice there. Overall, yesterday, we talked about some games yesterday. Unfortunately, all came up short. We talked about the Reds and Castillo. They come up a run short. The Mets come up short. And what was the final on the Tigers' first half run?
They got the plus a half a run there. So it was a tie game at the end of 5 innings. Ohtani hit a home run in the 5th inning. Otherwise, it was a winner, even if you played him on the money line. But that's the way baseball is.
Yeah, I had him written down at the plus half, so we end up cashing there. I mean, we could talk the whole show about Ohtani. I mean, just an absolute amazing year this guy is having. The thought process of 2 games playing in the field, and then go pitch 5 or 6 innings and going out to the outfield, maybe take a day off, quote unquote DH. I mean, hands down, I mean, it's always been the MVP should be named Mike Trout's MVP because he goes off at even money versus the rest of the field. But I mean, absolute no-brainer, I think, in the American League. Unfortunately, the Angels are struggling, for some wins here. Thoughts on what Ohtani's doing?
Well, it's kind of amazing. And, I've always told people that when you go see an athlete and especially a professional athlete, and these are the guys at the highest level of the game, the reality is that they're superhuman people. And if you were to stand next to Shohei Ohtani, he would look like Aaron Judge. I mean, he is that big and he is that young, but he's very agile and he's very athletic. He's got the ability to do things that normal people can't. I mean, just in your work life or wherever you go and you see big people, most of the times they're clumsy and slow and they can't move their feet real well. But these are people that are just dynamic superstar people that can do things that most of us can't. And he's one of them. He throws, almost 100 miles an hour as a left-handed pitcher, and then he hits, 20 some home runs, and he'll probably hit near 40 home runs. So it's an amazing thing to see, and it's a good thing for baseball. It's not a bad thing.
Short menu today, but there are some headliners here as we get another round of the Dodgers and Padres, what some were assuming and hoping was going to be your NL final to see who goes to the World Series. For all baseball purists, for the New York Mets, it's DeGrom Day. Now, what he is doing is simply off the charts. I embrace it. I enjoy it. But being the number one fan and president of the Pedro Martinez fan club, I can't just compare. What he's doing is elite, and I'm not taking anything away with it. Pedro to me is a god. I witnessed him live dozens of times. I was there on it was the first weekend of the season, and it was game 3. And he was pitching against the Tampa Bay Devil Rays at that time. And he went strikeout, bloop flare to right field, hit. And that was the only hit he gave up. He pitched 8 innings, struck out, I think, 15, 16, 17, somewhere there, tipped the cap. It was on Masters Sunday, and the whole crowd just left after he tipped the cap. And then I took my dad and we ran to the hilltop to watch the final round of the Masters and Tiger. Talk about DeGrom, where he was last year, and his speed right now. His fastball has jumped. Is this sustainable? I know he's had a couple hiccups and a couple injuries. Thoughts on DeGrom, where he is today, and where you think he will be moving forward?
Well, one of the things I do every day, and I chart all these pictures and all the numbers and all the different things, and then I can compare them. Like I can compare DeGrom to any pitcher, and the way I kind of do it is I do it in what I call tiers. Because you can group several people together in a tier, and you don't have to pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You don't have to pick them that way. You can pick, okay, these guys are in the top tier, these guys are in kind of a middle tier, these guys, that kind of thing. DeGrom's in a tier of his own. There's nobody that does what he's doing. So I wanted to spend a little time with him today because I talk a little bit about the XFIP numbers and Sierra numbers, and a lot of people don't know what those really truly are. But so let's talk about XFIP for just a minute. So FIP is fielding independent pitching. What that means is how a pitcher controls the game from his point of view on the mound. So he independent of the defense. So those are. It looks like an earned run average because they've been able to kind of manipulate it so that it looks like that, so that most people can understand what a good ERA is. They can understand what a good FIP number is. XFIP is the predictive measure of FIP. So when you're looking at XFIP, you're looking at what he's going to do in the future, not necessarily what he's done in the past. So a good number for XFIP is going to be somewhere around 3.5 or lower. His XFIP is 0.56. So where does that come from? Well, it comes from the ability then to look at, if you control the game from the mound, then you're not allowing your defense to make plays. Most of that's going to come from strikeouts. So a good strikeout rate and to be in the top third in Major League Baseball is going to be somewhere around 28.5% or better. So that's pretty good. I mean, 1 out of 4 guys come up there and they strike out. That's pretty good. Well, Jacob deGrom's strikeout rate is 50%. Half the guys that go up there strike out. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, he has thrown more 100-mile-an-hour plus fastballs than any pitcher in the game, and it's by far. As a starting pitcher, I think the last time I saw, I didn't check into it before today's game, but he's thrown in the neighborhood of 130 100-plus mile-an-hour fastballs, and the next guy on the list, the second place guy on the list, has thrown 7. I mean, think about that. One guy's thrown 130 100-plus mile-an-hour fastballs as a starting pitcher, and the next guy's thrown 7. So then you got to look at it and you go, all right, so how do guys get on base? Do they get base hits? Well, the batting average against them is 100. So 1 out of 10 guys gets a hit. And so does he walk anybody? Does he put anybody on base? Well, his walk rate is 1.1%. So he walks basically no one. He walks one guy out of 100. That's his walk rate. And so, I mean, you can go on and on and on and on. A hard thrower like that usually doesn't have a good ground ball rate because guys get a fly ball. His ground ball rate is 52.3%. Half of the hitters hit the ball on the ground. He is, I don't know. I mean, he's unworldly in a sense that there is nobody that you can compare him to at this point. I know you talked about Pedro and Pedro's stuff. Pedro was really, really good, and I think people forget a little bit about how good he really was. The difference between Pedro Martinez and Jacob deGrom is that Pedro was a lot more gritty and a lot more tough than what deGrom is. deGrom, he was very reliant on his stuff, and not that Pedro wasn't, but I mean, if Pedro didn't have good stuff, he could still go out and only give up 3 hits. He was a very tough-minded guy, and I'm not saying deGrom isn't. I'm just saying he's not a Pedro. You think about those numbers we just talked about, and deGrom's barely got a winning record. So that's the difference. I mean, he still has to rely on his offense to win the games, but in those tight games like that, your Pedro Martinez's of the world who are more street tough, those guys aren't going to lose. They just aren't. That's the way they play, and that's the way they were. They're bred. I guess their internal fortitude, or whatever you want to call it. I don't think that deGrom has that level of whatever it is that makes those guys mental toughness, if you want to call it that. But he is by far the best pitcher in Major League Baseball. I don't think there's anything even close to what he does.
Now, and I go back to even before the season started, have a lot of friends that participate in high stakes fantasy baseball. And the rule used to be way back in the day, you never take a pitcher in the first round. Well, times have changed, obviously. But the great debate was it deGrom or was it Cole? And a lot of people would lean Cole, not that his numbers were identical to deGrom's, but the fact that you expected a lot more wins from Cole with the Yankees versus deGrom and the Mets. I mean, when the guy goes out, unfortunately, he could file for non-support as the team just never scores any runs. I mean, you're always looking up at the 7th or 8th inning, and it's 0-0, 1-1, and it reminded me of Pedro, and it actually reminded me a lot of Roger Clemens. Every time Clemens pitched, the Red Sox back in the day never scored for him, and then the next day they'd put up a crooked number in the first when Oil Can Boyd or someone was out there, Bruce Hurst was out there throwing. So it was quite comical, but I do agree with exactly what you're saying about deGrom. He's just in his own little stratosphere, and a privilege. Again, a true baseball fan, enjoys that. Enjoys what Shotani's doing, enjoys what deGrom's doing. When Pedro pitched, If you were a Boston fan, your butt was parked. Even if you're on the TV, your butt was glued to the TV every inning that he pitched, and then you'd run to the bathroom or to the beer stand when the offense was up, and it used to always be the exact opposite. So pretty comical there. Gonna bring the menu up right now, Scotty. Like I said, it's a short menu today. I want to pick out a couple games and pick your brain if we can there. Let's move over to here today. We'll go here today. I'm going to use our sports insights today. Still waiting on a couple pitchers, obviously, in the Atlanta game with the Mets. I find it hard to believe that a major league team could be as bad or going on such a run that the D-backs have gone on. It's just, when you tank in football to get a Trevor Lawrence or someone of that caliber, when you tank in basketball to get a LeBron or someone of that caliber, I get it. And I'm not saying that Arizona's tanking, but in baseball, between creating breaks, it's just physically impossible in my mind to go on such these runs. And I find it comical today. Okay. They're playing the Brewers. Okay. Anderson versus Kelly. Okay. Milwaukee opens up 120 at Pinnacle. It's already dropped to 115. So we're showing some reverse line movement already on the D-backs. And when you got 76% of the bets, 76% of the money coming in on the Brewers, yet the line has dropped 9 cents. So when you talk to clients or people just on Twitter and say, hey, there's some nice, sharp, heavy reverse line movement on the D-backs, they'll look at you like you have three heads and say, excuse me? Thoughts on that game, Scotty?
Well, I like the pitching matchup for Arizona today, and I'm not sure that I would really say that in very many matchups. Merrill Kelly is pitching today, and he has been one of Arizona's better pitchers for the majority of the season. And he's facing Brett Anderson today for Milwaukee, and he's just, I think he's pretty close to 40 years old now. I think he's 38, 39, something like that. And he strikes out no one, and he doesn't get swings and misses at all. So there's going to be a lot of contact for Arizona today. It's just a matter then of can they get hits versus that. Where I think you run into some significant problems in trying to support Arizona in a lot of ways. They're 26th in Major League Baseball right now this week. In offense, they are 62 weighted runs created plus. That means they're 38% worse than just an average offense, let alone the team that's just killing everybody. And then their bullpen is the 30th team out of 30 teams. So there you go. You have a weak offense and a terrible bullpen, and in theory, you have a team. If I just looked them up here. On the course of the whole season, they are the 29th worst starting pitching there is. So you're not going to expect a team that can't hit and can't pitch to be able to win a lot of games. They're playing Milwaukee today, and I don't really mind the idea that people would support Arizona today. But even though I said that, Kelly's probably a little better pitcher than what, Anderson is, Kelly's not a flamethrower that doesn't, he gives up hits. He's not a super big strikeout guy. And here's a good number for you. Anderson is 4.31 Sierra number, and Kelly is 4.11. So they're basically the same guy sitting out there. And so it's a matter of who can hit who today. But what they lost, I think, was it 16 in a row or something?
17. And it's like 34 out of the last 39. It's the stupidest number I've ever heard in baseball.
Yeah, I said it. We said it on this show when we first started running the show. our job is to select opportunities and find where they're going to go. Streaks are really important because you should ride them. It's not our job to figure out when the streak ends, because you never know when it's going to end. I mean, this could carry on to 25 games. I'm just making that up. But I mean, we don't have control over that. And theoretically, a bad bounce or a missed call or who knows, whatever, that could just sway the whole game. But at the same time, I still think that in this particular matchup, Anderson's off one of his best games that he's thrown in a long, long time. And I would suspect that he's going to get hit today, and I think Kelly's probably going to pitch a little better today. So it wouldn't bother me to be on Arizona today.
And close on this note, when you're going against the Brewers, nothing worse than, again, it happened yesterday. Brewers scratched one out late to take a 2-1 lead. And then who's sitting there in the ninth inning is Josh Hader. And he's another one that's almost impossible to hit. So we'll be monitoring this game, especially. I don't know his availability today, but if we are on Arizona, might look for them in the first 5 spot there versus hoping not to have to score against Mr. Hader there. 2 more I wanted to just talk about again. We talked briefly to start the show. The Dodgers are traveling to San Diego. Urias versus Darvish, a great matchup. And Padres opened up a favorite -125, starting to leak a little towards the Dodgers side. But if you look at the exact numbers here, the Padres did move to 126 at Pinnacle. Dodgers plus a 114. Less bets, more money on the Padres right now. Shows us the sharper, heavier money, at least overnight in the start of the day, is leaking in on the Padres. Thoughts on Urias versus Darvish?
Yeah, let me just finish up your thought about Hader. He did not pitch yesterday, so he's
okay.
He's very alive and well to pitch today, if you want to say that. But in reference to the Dodgers,
I think what ended up happening was we were on the Pirates Saturday, I think. So maybe I was looking back on Saturday and I saw him there. So thank you very much on that note.
Yeah, I've got a site that I can look at that I can see who pitched in every game from the bullpen. So it's a pretty good bullpen usage tool because it breaks it down for the last 4 days. So it gives you an idea if a pitcher pitched back to back, he's probably not going to pitch, So I like to use that when I'm really looking at overs and unders and different other types of things there. But anyway, looking at that Los Angeles Dodgers and San Diego Padres game, you said earlier today when you were talking about standing room only today at the game yesterday in the Cape Cod League. I would tell you that there's going to be standing room only in an electric atmosphere today in San Diego because it's 100% open there. And this is going to be a madhouse. So this is going to be a game that, the energy level is going to be way, way up. And when you have the energy level way, way up, you need to really rely on your superstars to play. Now, the Dodgers are still minus Seager. But Seager is now in he's down in the minor leagues getting ready to come back up. So he's due up soon. Probably, I would say 10 days or so, you'll see Seager back to playing. But in this particular matchup, it's kind of interesting that Urias is slightly worse than Darvish, but Darvish has been not the same as he was at the beginning of the season. So I think the line is probably really good here. I still think that the Dodgers are the much better team. I think that the Padres are going to be up for this series. Not that the Dodgers won't be, but I still think the Dodgers, my opinion hasn't changed from the beginning of the season. They're the best team in baseball. And the other thing that I believe is that the Dodgers and the Giants have the rivalry. The Dodgers and the Padres are only a rivalry to the Padres, not to the Dodgers. I don't think the Dodgers really care about the Padres. that Padres have to beat the Dodgers. And if you look at the numbers going back for the last 20 years, the Padres are probably I'm just going to estimate, but they're probably a 300 win team 30% of the time against the Dodgers. So that's not really a rivalry to the Dodgers. And I get it that they're in the same division and both of them are really good and all that stuff. But I don't want to underestimate Urias, but I also don't think that he is a big game pitcher at this point yet in his career. If it was Walker Buehler on the mound, I think Walker Buehler would be favored. So in my opinion, the line is good. It's one of those spots where I wouldn't mind taking the Dodgers. How many times can you take the Dodgers as a dog? I have no issue with that. So that's where I would probably lean.
All righty. Well, it's about that time of the day here, Mr. Scott. So give us a second here. And here we go. Stage is yours, my brother.
Yeah, as you mentioned, it's a short slate, but I found two plays, and I really liked both of them. So instead of playing them that way, I just put them in a parlay today. I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to parlay this and see what happens. So I went with the Cincinnati Reds today and Mahle over the Minnesota Twins. I paid 115. So I got Mahle minus 115 today against Jay Happ. And this is a pitching matchup that's a nightmare for for Minnesota, in a sense that I don't think many people really realize how good Mahle is. Mahle's got a 2.97 Sierra number, 32% strikeout rate, and he only walks 5%. So he's not putting guys on base at all. And his home run rate is really low. And that's what Minnesota does. They hit the home run. So if you can keep the ball in the park, I like the idea that Mahle's going to pitch well. The other one is Jay Happ. And Jay is probably one of very few guys that are getting the opportunity to pitch today on an everyday, every start basis with a 40% hard hit rate. He's at 41.9, so really 42%. So almost half the guys that come up there, at least 5 out of 8 are they're just hitting him at over 95 mile an hour exit velocity, and the batting average against is 336. He's just not the guy that I think they were reliant on to fold there. So I like the Reds today. I liked them yesterday. Castillo, they didn't come through yesterday, but I think I will have a better opportunity today against Happ. Looking at the lineups against him, Castellanos and Joey Votto love to face him. They've done very well against him. And yesterday I said I wasn't worried about Schwarber. Then he goes off and hits 3 home runs. So, so hopefully I said that with the idea being that those guys will go off and hit 3 home runs each. So that was the idea. The second game that I really like today, it's a totals play. This is the Oakland and Texas game, and I'm going to play this game under the 8.5, and I paid 120 for that. And there's 3 real reasons why I did it. Number one, if Texas is going to be good, they need to hit, and right now they are the 29th ranked offense in baseball. So their weighted runs created plus is 59. That means they're 41% worse than a regular offense. So they're going to be facing Montas, who has had we talked about it yesterday a little bit. Those guys that start off poor, he's actually in the middle of the season really jumped up. So he's pitching really well. And he's going to face Gibson today, who has had a great season. He is, other than DeGrom and Darvish, he's actually number 2 on the board today with game score for the year. He's not 61. So that's ace-like. He's been dynamic. So that means that Oakland is going to struggle hitting to a degree. And the other part of this, so I like the idea that you have two really good pitchers. They probably ought to last into the game to seven innings. And the wind is 16 mile an hour blowing in from left center field today. And I get it that in Texas, it might be super, super hot, so they might put the roof up. But, that wind can be a factor, and I would suspect that they're going to play with the roof open. So I played both of those games as a parlay, but obviously the design is to play them one at a time.
All right. 1 second. All right, so we gave out 2 games today. You talked about the Reds minus the 115 with Melee, the under 8.5 Oakland and Texas. And what we're going to do here, we talked about this earlier, so we're going to post this here for everyone watching. Have everyone take a swing here if they'd like to go into the bee's nest, as we'd like to say. ECSI going to give out the Diamondbacks. Well, we will take the half run line for the first 5. I get them at minus 115. If you're looking for plus money, obviously you can grab them at a short dog. The only problem with that, again, if it's tied, you push, which, a push is better than a loss. Here, if we get the tie like we did yesterday on the Tigers, we do cash that ticket. And again, we're staying away from Mr. Josh Hader in the back end. So we'll lean there. We'll we can stop the streak here with the first 5 play. Closing thoughts, Scotty.
Well, I think that as we're seeing some changes in baseball, one of the things that the Tampa Rays, for example, have lost, I think, 6 in a row now or something like that. They have the number 1 prospect in all of baseball, Wander Franco. Wander Franco will be in the lineup on Tuesday. He is a call-up and will be someone that if you're excited about baseball and want to see what the number 1 prospect in baseball looks like, he will be on the field and in the lineup against, I think he played the Red Sox on Tuesday. So tomorrow he will be there. So it'll be interesting because I kind of want to see where they're gonna play him because he's a shortstop. They traded away their shortstop Adames, and then they brought up Walls to play shortstop. I don't know if he's going to play second base or third base, or I don't know where he's going to go. They got so many different parts and pieces and moving puzzles that I don't know what they're going to do with him. But the reality is they can't keep him down anymore. That if they're going to make a run, they need to have their number 1 guy prospect-wise there. And I think you're going to see that from some of these teams. And I wouldn't be surprised to start seeing some of these teams. We're only, I think 6 weeks or 5 weeks from the trade deadline. So some of these teams will get ahead of that and make some moves early. And I think that will affect how the pennant races run as we go down to the wire. So some things are getting ready to happen in Major League Baseball.
I did see that yesterday, and it is kind of poetic justice that you debut him against the Red Sox, who, if I am correct, have a half-game lead over Tampa. So surprising, again, we're sitting at this spot less than 3 weeks away from that all-star break. And as you said, really going to get interesting. We're all still waiting for the Yankees to get on their horse and make their run. They end the game yesterday with a triple play, which is kind of comical. I think the third one they've turned this year. So I guess you can't call it a fluke when it actually is a fluke, but when you've done it 3 times. So for everyone here, if you got a second and been listening to the show, just jump over to the YouTube page, hit subscribe. If you got 5 seconds, add a quick review, retweet, send your friends here. We're here to educate, not entertain. We leave that for Fox and ESPN. And we thank everyone here. As myself and Scotty are trying to educate more, to give out our analysis on what we are seeing. Myself and Scott are basically two separate from. How can we say this correctly? Look at the game the same way, but don't look at the game the same way. And we try to come up with the end result, obviously, is to cash that ticket. So Scotty based all his analysis on numbers. It's just amazing how you can dissect a game where for us at ECSI here, we look at the market like your stockbroker, but we're your sports broker. So we will be, as the season progresses, starting to tiptoe through the tulips into the NFL and college. And we're going to keep the same look, and we're going to keep focusing on the numbers and do what we do to hope to cash that ticket at the end of the night for you. So from myself and Scotty, we wish you a great day. We will catch you here tomorrow morning, probably the same time, right around 10 o'clock. And we wish everyone the best of the day. Always invest and wager responsibly.